guys, welcome back to the channel where I cover missing persons, unsolved cases, crime news, and more. Well, I don't know if you guys have heard about this case yet. It happened about a week ago. This is a couple. It is Spencer and Monique Tepe. I don't know if I'm saying their last name correctly. They were found inside of their Columbus, Ohio home on December 30th, deceased, when law enforcement arrived at the home for a welfare check. Now, officers were dispatched to that home just after 10 a.m. last Tuesday. Like I said, that was December 30th. And that is when they found both parents. There were two children in the home, unharmed, thankfully. They had been murdered from apparent gunshot wounds. Officers were dispatched to the home just after 10 a.m. last Tuesday morning, and that is when they found both Spencer and Monique deceased on the scene from apparent gunshot wounds. No weapons were found inside the home, and there were no signs of forced entry. The couple's 4-year-old daughter and 1-year-old son were found inside of the home, and they were found not injured, not disturbed by whomever this killer was or is. A co-worker of Spencer's, he was a dentist, a well-known dentist in the area. He first called 911 after Spencer didn't show up for work at his dental clinic in Athens, which is about 75 miles away, and he could not be reached by his office staff. Apparently, the caller informed the dispatch on the 911 call that Spencer is always on time and he would contact us if there were any issues. And he went on to state, "I don't know how else to say this, but we are very concerned. This is very out of character for him. We cannot get in touch with his wife, which is probably the more concerning thing." That is when Columbus police, they went to the home and repeatedly knocked at the front and back doors, but nobody answered. Later that morning, another worried coworker called 911 from outside of the home and told dispatch that they could hear children inside. It was then that a friend got into the home and saw Spencer's body, and that is, of course, when police arrived at the scene yet again. Spencer was shot multiple times, while his wife Monique was hit once in the chest, according to law enforcement. Now, Columbus police are stressing that they do not believe that the deaths were a result of a murder unaliving situation. So they don't believe that either one of these, the couple, were going after the other and then, of course, unaliving themselves. And they are asking the public and the neighbors, obviously, in that area for any video, photos, or other digital evidence that might show any suspicious people or vehicles near the home that early morning when these shootings occurred. The timeline that has sort of been compiled up until this point is 8 a.m. is when the dental office actually opens, and it's 9:03 a.m. when the first 911 call is made. The first 911 call was placed by the owner of the Athens Dental Depot, where Spencer works. It's Mark. His name is Mark Valrose. He is the owner again of the dental practice. He called 911 and requested that police conduct a wellness welfare check at the Tempe residence after Spencer didn't show up for work. So you figure this is an hour after they opened, and he's not there. And they're all saying he's never late, and if he has an issue, he would call. And then it goes to 9:22 a.m. Well, that is when Columbus Police Department, they arrive at the scene of the Tepe's house, and they actually do a check where they knock on that front door and the back door multiple times, and they get no answer. 9:57 a.m. is when the family friend calls 911 from the actual house, stating that they can hear kids inside. One of Spencer's friends went to his house, called 911 at 9:57 a.m., according to logs, telling the dispatcher that he, quote, thought he heard one of the kids yelling, unquote, according to that call log. 10:04 a.m., another one of Tepe's friends calls 911, and that is when a report of seeing a body inside of the house is reported. This is, of course, a separate 911 caller telling the dispatcher that they could see a body inside of the home. The caller stated, "We just came here and he appears dead. He's laying next to his bed, off of his bed in his blood. I can't get closer to see more than that," he stated. "I can tell he's obviously not breathing or anything." A baby was also heard crying inside of the house, according to the records from dispatch. 10:13 a.m., bullet casings are located by police. That is when dispatch records reveal that the bullet casings were found at the crime scene, and according to Sergeant Bill, I'm going to actually play. He has a channel called Police Off the Cuff. Some of you may be familiar with him. He put out a short video today about the bullet casings, and I'm going to go through a little bit of that. Apparently it was a 9mm, so that narrows it down a bit. The family had released a statement also on Friday, stating that they are heartbroken beyond words and calling the deaths tragic and senseless. Yeah, I think that's the least going on for sure. And honestly, it doesn't make a lot of sense if there's no break-in. And remember, law enforcement stating there's no sign of a break-in, and as of now, they're not releasing that there was any other evidence found at the scene besides these bullet casings and, of course, the deceased Spencer and Monique. But as we all know, if we've been following these cases in true crime and for any amount of time, you don't enter a scene without bringing something in, and then you don't leave it without leaving something. So obviously the bullet casings are one, but I believe it's very, very possible that whomever committed this crime left their DNA, at least on those bullet casings, if not something more.
People I talk to say there are so many loose ends. I've seen investigators out here today. Just about every house around me also has some kind of security camera. The people here in Wineland Park say if you know anything, the time is now to speak up.
Well, I don't get it. I don't get it at all.
A growing memorial of flowers outside Spencer and Monique Tepe's home, almost a week after the couple was found murdered inside.
This was tragic because you just won't think that it would happen. Like it's close, you know. So I stay 3 houses down.
Police still have not released any suspect information, making neighbors question their safety.
Certainly an unsettling feeling to kind of be without more detail about something that is definitely very concerning.
This is NBC4 out of Columbus, and I agree with that neighbor. It's concerning if you live there, and it does seem like a nice neighborhood, obviously, and they don't know really anything. And I believe that the police department, they know a lot more than they're saying, and there's good reason to keep that from the media and the public. Now, obviously, if you're living there, that's not going to help ease your fears and concerns. But I have to believe, and we would have to go with the fact that law enforcement is trying to do their due diligence and do their investigation and, rule people out, do their interviews. And I really think it's going to be the old fashioned police work, and then, of course, forensics with DNA that's going to figure out who the killer or killers are that did this horrific crime.
They say the area has seen its fair share of violent incidents in the past, but thought it was getting better.
Well, I certainly feel more apprehensive about making moves around nighttime and things like that.
Family members described the couple in a statement as loving life and say they were proud of their 2 children and dog. Neighbors we talked to say they've seen them out and about.
Every time I seen them, they spoke. There was no evil or nothing towards So, like I said, these was fine people.
Friday, Columbus police put out an ask for any pictures or videos in the area that might help them solve this case. We saw a security camera on just about every house in the neighborhood, including the Teppies. People we talked to say they want answers.
I'm hopeful that somebody caught something, because this is a very troubling position to be in for anybody, let alone the people who are most affected.
It's time to speak up, These people didn't bother nobody. Like I said, you see them come and go every time, polite, I always was cheerful when you see them. They smiled all the time.
Yeah. So I think with all of those Ring cameras, there's apparently a police camera across the street. The amount of cameras pretty much everywhere nowadays, it seems to me it is almost, and I have to put that there at the beginning, almost impossible to commit a crime and not be seen on a camera. That doesn't mean you're not in disguise, but to be invisible, I don't think that's possible. So I believe that whoever this person or persons is, I believe they were caught on probably multiple Ring cameras. And if they were not caught on the Tepe's cameras, that makes me wonder, did this person know how to disable their cameras? Did they remove any video footage? Obviously, law enforcement's not stating one way or the other. But this seems, in my opinion, from what I've been reading so far and following, that I feel like this was a personal crime. I think that whoever this was after Spencer. For some reason, he was after the dentist. He or she or whoever they were after him. Because remember, he was shot multiple times. And Monique was shot once, so far from what we know. So I think that she may have come into things when she wasn't supposed to. They may have thought she saw too much. But it makes you wonder, was this person invited into their home? Were they there previously? Did they know how to bypass their security systems? Was it someone who has a vengeance, something that they were out to get Spencer for? It could be a disgruntled former worker. I don't know. See, a lot of things come up to me when they ruled out that they unalived each other. Okay? And I know I have to be careful here on YouTube with how we say that, but they have ruled out the murder-s possibility. So I think we have to think, well, was Spencer involved in any gambling? Again, these are just questions, not any allegations against him or his family. Was he involved? Did he owe money to someone? And they came to get him. Again, the disgruntled former worker. Maybe a disgruntled patient. Maybe somebody who worked for the security company. Someone who worked in or around their home. Did they have a housekeeper? Did they have somebody who took care of their lawn? I don't know. I mean, you have to think of all these possibilities and put them on the list, you know? And obviously, I think law enforcement's going to be checking out every single person that could be connected to Spencer and Monique. But I think more so to Spencer because he just seems like he was the target to me. But you guys let me know your thoughts. Do you think that they were both the target? Or do you think it was more Spencer and she happened to be in the wrong place, the wrong time? She was just there. But the only thing I can say is, as awful as it is that they're going to have no parents anymore, their parents are gone, that whoever did this did not hurt or touch those little kids, their children. It's still incredibly heartbreaking because now these little ones have to grow up without a mom and a dad. This is Police Off the Cuff with Sergeant Bill Cannon. He is a former New York City police investigator, and if you do not follow his channel, I highly, highly recommend it. I think this is just over 7 minutes long. I'm not going to play the entire bit. I just want to play a little bit of it because he discusses the bullet casings that were found at the scene.
So important evidence clarification right now. It has been clarified that 9mm spent shells were recovered inside the house. That's a 9mm spent shell. So what does that mean? They did not specify how many. So we don't know how many, but what that tells us, this is a 9mm spent shell. And what you're looking at is a firing pin impression, which is also unique to the gun that this spent shell came from. In addition, this is a picture of the spent shell, but the extractor marks, also unique to the firearm that fired this. And we don't know how many spent shells. The other thing I said to Professor Mike was, this is beautiful, because when you load a semi-automatic handgun, you must load into a magazine one at a time. And however big that magazine is, whether it holds 10 rounds, 9 rounds, 12 rounds, the only ones that get 15 rounds are law enforcement clips. They're illegal anywhere else. But guess what? The person that loaded that semi-automatic, put those rounds into the magazine, potentially could have left his or her DNA on the side of those cartridges.
That's a very, very good point. Unless they wore gloves or somehow made sure they didn't touch them. But we can only hope that they didn't wear gloves and their DNA is on these spent shell casings. We can only hope that this criminal wasn't very smart.
So there's another investigative tool that investigators have that potentially could identify the person or persons that did this heinous crime. And you could see, here's a better picture here for those that aren't that familiar. You could see firing pin impression, extractor marks. Again, I don't want to get too much into the science of.
Now, this is pretty cool. See, I love how Sergeant Bill will go into this stuff. And this is a very good graphic. Obviously, we're all interested in this stuff, but again, this is Sergeant Bill Cannon. He did, this was his job. This is the stuff he knows. He was a law enforcement. So it's showing here how you have like the drag marks when it comes through the firearm and all these certain marks. They're going to be specific to that gun. And I think ballistics is very interesting.
Ballistics, but all of these things are unique markings on the spent shell. And then there's a system, and this is the last time I'll get scientific because I'm not a scientist. There's something called IBIS, Integrated Ballistics Identification System. These spent shells will go into that, and they will be able to tell if this firearm was used anywhere in this city, anywhere in this country for that matter, and through this system called IBIS. So that's the last time I'll talk about this, but great news knowing that Now we know what type of firearm was used in this case. We don't know at this point how many rounds were fired because the Columbus, Ohio police don't want us to know that.
Yeah, and I think that the fact that they've just released that information is big, because when I first read this information, they hadn't released that there were spent shell casings and that you were able to know that it's a 9mm. So again, not a lot of information, but there's a little bit starting to seep through to the public, through law enforcement, to the media. So I think that that is definitely very helpful, but at the same time, that they still have a lot of work to do. So I don't know how long it's going to take Columbus PD to figure out, obviously, the weapon when they go through IBIS for the ballistics, like Sergeant Bill was just talking about. I love that they have that now. That's definitely very, very helpful to see, if that gun was involved in other crimes. As far as if any folks related to the family, if they're going to not have an alibi, they're going to have some sort of connections to the scene. Maybe they left a hair, skin, like I said, DNA. DNA. We always talk about that in these cases. It's always very important. It may or may not solve the case, but it can make a big, big difference. So did that person leave hair? Did they leave fingernails? Did they leave skin? Obviously, did they touch the bullet casings? Did they touch other things in the home? Did they touch anything on Spencer and Monique that they're able to get DNA or any other, maybe even fingerprints off of? So I don't know what they have, but I do think they know a lot more than they are saying. And I think we're hitting a week. It's as of tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised if they have gotten themselves a list of suspects at this point. We can only hope that they find this person or persons sooner rather than later. Because who knows? This just could have been just after Spencer, and these neighbors, these people, nearby, have nothing to worry about. But, because I don't think it's random. From what I'm reading, I don't think this is random at all. I think this was planned, and I think that this person knew the home, knew the Tepe's home, and they knew Spencer and probably Monique. But again, that's just my opinion. So I think that somebody close to them in some capacity. But please let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments, because I always want to know your thoughts. And with that said, I hope you have a great rest of the day. And most of all, stay safe.